What is up, YouTube? In this video, I'm gonna be showcasing 3 advanced fry scream techniques. Now this video is a follow-up from my previous fry screaming tutorial, so if you've not watched that, be sure to check it out. Now, as per usual, my disclaimer, I am not a professional singer yet, and this is just my experience, so take this information as you will. Before we begin, if you're new to the channel, my name is Jun, and on this channel we do covers and educational videos about singing and screaming. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Now let's get into it. So the first technique that I'll be getting into is the pitched scream. So the first technique we're going to be talking about is the pitched fry scream. Now, what makes this fry scream different from the previous fry scream that I talked about is that this scream has more of an emphasis on the actual note that you are projecting beneath the distortion. An example of this would be if I were to take a note, like let's just say ah, and were to add distortion onto that, but still keep the emphasis on the note itself. So ah, right? That would be a pitched fry scream. So you can hear my note within the fry scream very clearly. So an example of this would be, I'm gonna use a song from Architects called Hereafter. How do we start approaching this scream is picking your melody and singing it in your head voice first. So that would be like we're flowing with rage, like we're flowing with rage. That's just completely clean, and we get our fry rumble and we add it on top of that. And watch how I will do a more fry screamy versus a more pitched oriented. So this is more fry screamy, this is more pitch oriented. Like we're flowing with rage, but we celebrate. Versus if I were to focus more on pitch, like we're flowing with rage, but we still obey. So there is a difference between those two. And how do we get from ah to ah? It's just a matter of finding how your fry mechanism interacts with your head voice. So the difference between a fry scream and the pitch scream is how much head voice you put in. So in order to find that, you just really gotta experiment. So finding the balance between the fry scream and the pitch scream and navigating your way to finding your sound is one of 2 methods. One, you can pull the distortion back. So that would sound like I'm putting less compression on the actual fry mechanism, which is, I feel it right around here. That kind of sound. And I'm letting my head voice shine through. That's method 1, pulling back the distortion. Now method 2 is you can add more head voice in. So from a fry scream that you already are projecting, that's me projecting more of my head voice through that, and you can hear the through it. That's basically it, and you have to find the right balance. This method is through a lot of experimentation. Personally, I found this method through trying to sing a periphery song and flipping into my head voice while still doing a fry scream. And suddenly I found the configuration while I was in the shower. It was periphery song Stranger Things, if anyone's curious. To conclude, you need to find the right balance of your head voice and your fry distortion to find the exact right sound that you're going for. Technique 2. Now, I would call this kind of an extension of the previous fry scream technique. This is a step further than that. Now, there's not really a term for it. It's a technique that's used a lot by the singer from Architects and Chester Bennington because it's very natural in how you would find it. Now, what do I mean by this? It's because it's both a mixture of fry screaming and false fault distortion. I promise it's not as complicated as it sounds. But when approaching this scream, you can't do it from the screams that I have outlined in the previous video where you go from quiet all all the way to projecting, because you need to start from a mixed voice position. Now, I'll definitely make a video on mixed voice in the future, but it's one of the prerequisites to learning this sort of shouty kind of scream. First step to finding this scream is finding your false folds, which you can do via coughing. You can feel that at the end. That stop in your throat does your false folds. So get used to the feeling of in your daily life. Now, once you found the placement, you're gonna want to try pushing air through it. So how I would describe this is how like an old grandpa sounds like you don't have to like really squeeze those false folds together and go like like that's not what you want. You just want that's when you get the compression. That's when your false folds are pressing down. After that, you need to learn how to push more air through with a note. So we do that's your old school Metallica false fold distortion. Say your prayers, little one, don't forget my son. That kind of stuff. Once you figured out your false fold distortion, you need to learn how to sing high in your mixed voice. So, oh, that kind of stuff. You need to do that oh underneath your false fold distortion. So how that would sound like? Oh! You will automatically flip into more of a heady mixed position, but it's still a mix. So that's how you get that placement, and you'll automatically engage your fry once you get high enough. Now, you can consciously control the amount of fry that you're putting in, but it basically just comes with a lot of experimentation. This is the process to which you can find this scream. So one example of the pitched, sort of shouty pitch scream, this would be from Linkin Park. Put me out of my misery! That's your one example of a pitch scream. Another example would be like we're flowing with rage, but we still obey. This is the price that we have to pay. But basically, it's a thicker version of the first technique that I showcased. So you could just call this the thicky fry scream, the thicky pitch scream. I think it would be helpful if I illustrated the difference between technique 1 and technique 2, because they are very similar. So if I were to use the same note, right? And I would go pitch scream and go to thicky pitch scream. So yeah, transitioning between that gives me a headache. But anyway, you get the point. There's more false fold activation during the second technique. Now, for the last technique, this is called the high fry scream. So this is a tongue placement that, when done correctly, it can sort of emulate the sound of a false chord high, even though you are doing a fry scream. Now, I'm not exactly what mechanism allows your voice to sound this way. It might be your epiglottis, not too sure. But I do know it's just from one simple modification from your fry scream. You just need to put your tongue like this. Roll your tongue into the bottom of your mouth. So when you use that, then transitioning from a fry scream to that. You hear the complete difference. It changes the acoustics of your voice drastically. So you can use this for your kind of death metal-y sounds. You sound like an absolute demon, but yeah, it's still a fry scream underneath. Same thing. And so yeah, that's the last technique. Fairly simple compared to the other two, where you have to juggle with, your head voice and stuff, but very useful nonetheless. So that brings us to the end of the video. If you'd like to see me use these techniques, I'll link a playlist to my covers in the top right. Or if you'd like a refresher on my original fry screaming tutorial, it will also be linked up there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.